Welcome to Radiant Health, how to create health from the inside out. I'm your host, Lori Wacom, and I'm so glad you're joining us today. Hopefully you have found a nice, comfortable place where you can sit, take it all in, and you never know, today might be the day you hear exactly what you need to hear. And I'm so excited to introduce you to my guest today, Jennifer Sherwood. Jennifer helps women who just want time to catch their breath, learn how to create more ease in their life, so you can stop feeling guilty, overloaded, or like you're abandoning everyone. As a certified life coach and speaker, Jen is passionate about women making themselves a priority and creating a life they love, not just tolerate. She has a master's degree in audiology, aka hearing science, and her previous career focus was in pediatrics, which means she knows a thing or two about working with women, moms, and families in times of stress or uncertainty. Jen, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. By the way, as you were introducing today and you were saying, I hope you found a comfortable place, I just kind of felt my whole body relax in like, oh, this is magic what you're creating. There's something about this space that you're creating that just feels so comfortable and nurturing for women. I got that just on your opening.
Oh, thank you. That's good because that's what I want to create. I just
Yeah.
want them to be able to, like you viewers, to just sit back, relax, and just like be able to breathe and take it
Yeah.
all in. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's a gift to give yourself a moment anyway, but to take a moment, breathe, and then be in this whole summit of women who are coming to talk about radiant health just elevates that gift.
I thank you. I think so too. Thank you so much for sharing that because I do. I think that's so important. And that brings me to my first question, which
Nice segue, right?
yeah, nice segue. Thank you. Well, I always like to start with what does radiant health mean to you?
So it's interesting, Lori, when you say that, because the word radiant for me, I mean, I didn't look it up, but it might be in the definition, but radiant to me, it's this way of kind of projecting. Just I see light and goodness and beauty. And so when radiant health comes together, I'm just thinking of it radiating from the inside out. And you can't have radiant health if you're unkind to yourself. Actually, that sounds like a very jargony term. Let me rephrase that. You
Okay.
can't radiate health if you're beating yourself up all the time. And you can't radiate health if you're avoiding how you feel by eating junk food and binging out on Netflix and drinking too much wine. I mean, we're all guilty of all of that. I will raise my hand. But as you're asking that question, I'm just thinking about almost like sunlight radiating out from each of us in terms of that health question. And if you're doing things to yourself to not feel or to escape from things, it's really going to dampen that. So radiant health to me means just taking really good care of yourself. And I don't want anyone watching to think what I mean is you have to go, I'm going to make this up, right, but you have to be vegan, only organic, you have to be good all the time. You can't watch Netflix, you can't drink alcohol. That is not what I mean at all. It's that sort of like not quite abuse, I don't want to say that, but like stepping over that line of just like really not taking care of yourself. To me, radiant health comes from making yourself a priority and taking care of yourself and enjoying your life. So that feels like a very long-winded answer to your question.
It was actually a very beautiful answer. And I
Thank you.
love how you say, taking care of yourself,
Yeah,
but yet giving yourself permission to enjoy the things in life. Like, if you want a Netflix binge, that's okay. Um,
absolutely. As long as it's not your everyday. Look, I come from the perspective of how I got to this point in my journey was I had this really relentless perfectionist inner critic dictator that ruled me for a very long time. And so I just want to be certain that because I tried lots of things to feel better that weren't healthy, if you will. And so having a night watching Netflix is awesome. My family and I just not, I don't want to say my family, I'm not watching it with 5-year-old kids. My 17-year-old, my husband and I just started watching Ozark. We can't get enough of it.
oh,
I'm not checking out in life. I'm sitting down to enjoy a show with my family at the end of the day. That to me is different than when I used to sit on the couch when my kids were napping, watch TV endlessly, and eat an entire bag of Tostito lime chips at the same time.
y-
Two very different things.
I completely agree. And I used to do the same thing. I did. I would, yeah, after everyone was in bed at night, that was kind of my downtime,
Yeah.
but I was eating and just like binge watching these shows that didn't necessarily, uh, you know, put the happy, positive thoughts in my.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
How do I put this
Exactly.
delicately? You know, but
That weren't feeding your brain with good things. Is that what
thank
you're trying to
you.
say? Yeah, I
Yes,
was
thank you.
watching Law and Order SVU, and after a while I thought, yeah, I don't need to watch that anymore. Just not. And
Yeah.
particularly not because I was trying to feel better. Doing, whatever. Once in a while I still watch an episode of that show. It's fine, but it's what we're doing to make ourselves feel better, right? That wasn't working. And eating a bag of chips left me feeling, the thing about the food cycle too, or with alcohol, with anything, is you're doing this thing to feel better. It might give you a dopamine hit, so for a little tiny bit you feel better, but then you feel worse afterwards because you know what you just did to yourself. So circling back to radiant health, that's not how we're going to get there.
Right. That's true. And you're right. And then when you start to feel bad about yourself, then there's that whole vicious circle,
Yeah.
that you start this cycle. Well, and
Yes.
so, and how do you practice radiant health, like on a daily basis?
Well, I think I want to talk about it sort of from the 10,000-foot view and then daily, if that's okay.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
for me, it's really been a lot about reining in, if you will, that perfectionist dictator in my head. Because when I look back now, I can see there were times in my life where she was in control. I like to say she, like it wasn't me, but I do sort of think of it as sort of this separate entity, this relentless voice in my head, and how it stole so much joy out of my life. I mean,
Yeah.
when she hit her peak was when I have two kids, two girls, and they were really young, healthy. I have a good marriage. We have stability. Everything in my life should have been good. And yet, this perfectionist was just beating the crap out of me, making me feel like I wasn't good enough in every arena of my life. So, the sort of 10,000-foot view is I had to shift that. I really just got to a point where I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and
Mhm.
something needed to change. And so I really went on a journey I didn't know at the time I was going to change that voice. I just knew I wanted to feel better.
Yeah.
So I did work, I did therapy, I got into coaching, which is exactly why I'm a coach today, because I don't want any other women to suffer like that. It is so unnecessary. So 10,000-foot view to today. Today, what it really means for me is being able to say no and not be racked with guilt afterwards. I have a long history of saying yes when I didn't want to, and then feeling really resentful about that. And our health, as I'm sure has been talked about before in this space, isn't just about our physical health. Our mental health has to be coordinated with this. So when I'm thinking of radiant health, that had to start there, because until I felt better, I making my eating or my exercise habits a priority, forget it. That wasn't happening. Exercise wasn't happening at all, and eating was my escape. So
Yeah.
it really started with what I was saying to myself, what I was doing to myself, and saying no is a big part of that. Now, for me, it was interesting. I think of it like the pendulum swing. Like the pendulum had been stuck in the yes side for so long that it had to swing over to no. And I kind of got stuck there for a couple of years. I said no to everything pretty much.
Okay.
But now it's sort of found its middle ground. And I just have a better sense of just checking in. Is this something I want to do? Do I have the space and the time for this? And what is my motivation? Asking myself why. I really work on this with my clients too. Like, what is your reason for doing something? And I want to like my reasons, and I want my clients to like their reasons. Because when you start feeling bad, like, let me just give you a pretty simple example. Let's say your second cousin's daughter is having a baby shower, right? And the whole family is going, and it's a beautiful Sunday afternoon, and you just don't want to go. But for most women, we're compelled to be nice. We're compelled to take care of others. And so the automatic response to that is yes, because it's family. Or, you know what, let's make it closer. Your cousin's daughters, it's family.
Right.
And there is this obligation. And if you don't want to go, if you want to spend Sunday on a hammock in your backyard reading a book, which sounds delightful, there is
Doesn't it?
that struggle. Yeah. There's that struggle between what you should do and what you want to do. And so coming to the place of taking care of ourselves, we have been told our whole lives through our families, through our culture, that it's everybody else is more important than you. Your worth comes from taking care of everybody else. So to say no is a big deal. Like if women watching this don't understand why it's so hard for them to say no, this is why. Because we were really conditioned, particularly our generation. I think the generations coming behind us, hopefully, it's not quite as much, but we were really brought up to believe our worth came from taking care of others, what we could do for other people. And so saying no is really difficult. So I'm just asking people to like why they do it. If we take care of ourselves, we show up so much better for our lives, for our families. If you're not doing for yourself, what happens? I feel like I'm giving you a very long winded answer, but if we're not
No.
making time for ourselves, that gets bottled up in the form of resentment and frustration and overwhelm. And at some point, it comes out or it leaks out like daily. So, like your reasons, and you can use that when you say no to the cousin's daughter's baby shower, and your mom or your cousin or anybody is starting to put the pressure on you, just remember why you're doing it. Because a no, actually, let me reverse that. A yes to one thing is a no to another. I think that's really important for people to understand. So saying no to that baby shower is a yes to you and your mental health. So you asked me how I practice this on a daily basis. It's really paying attention to making sure that I get time for me.
I love
And
that.
I'm not talking, full day in the spa. Oh Lord, I wish I could have a full day in the spa during this pandemic. I want this pandemic to be over. But literally for me, it's walking my dogs, having a little time in the morning to journal, and then
Yeah.
starting my day. I just create time, and exercise has been bigger. Walking, I'm doing spin classes at home since the pandemic hit, just making sure my health is a priority. So I want to take a breath and stop for a second and just see if you have any questions and just let you respond to this. I feel like I'm just talking.
That's okay. I mean, it's also important. And yeah, I have a lot of like, things to just say, like it so resonates with me. I think so many of us, I don't know, I shouldn't say so many of us. I know that there's been many times where I have felt like I've just in a state of overwhelm
Mhm.
and in a constant do mode. And I feel like so many of us are, and that that we to be it's almost like if you're not aware, like it's almost you aren't aware of it. It's just a habit. It's
Yeah.
just like that day to day. And once you're aware of it, I feel like unless you really kind of have the tools or know what you need to do to get yourself kind of out of that, that it's hard, or at least it was for me for the longest time. I wanted to mention that, and then also you had mentioned when a few years ago when you just knew that you weren't feeling well, like you wanted to get better.
Yeah.
And it sounded like part of that was perfectionism. And I guess my
Yes.
question to you is for like our viewers, I mean, you didn't necessarily know that it was perfectionism that was holding you down or,
Right.
right. So I guess that's what I want to say to our viewers, that it's okay if you don't know what the actual issue is or what the culprit is. Is that true? Like, if you're just feeling down or you're feeling like there's more and that there's a block or something,
Oh, yeah. If
right?
you don't know what it is, you're 100% normal. Really. No, until you start digging into this, you might just feel um exhausted. So let's marry these two conversations. What does overwhelm feel like? And it's interesting that you said this. I had a client message me yesterday and just say, I just realized that I operate in overwhelm and didn't even realize it. So it speaks to what you said. So let's step back for a second and say, what does overwhelm feel like? Some people just generally know when they're overwhelmed. And I used to have a friend, I still have a friend, she doesn't say it as much as what I should say, but when when our kids were really young and there was so much going on, she would be talking about things and then she would just repeat over and over. I don't even think she realized she was doing it, but would just say, God, it's all too much. It's all too much. And what I think she meant was juggling everything. And so if there's any part of you that feels like, God, it's so much, that's overwhelm. Overwhelm, and it manifests itself a little differently in everybody, but this feels pretty universal. Exhaustion. You're just tired. You never feel like you can get ahead. Or maybe it's like kind of using that example of making time for yourself. Maybe you decided tonight you weren't going to watch TV, you were just going to read your book, you have a book, and then you thought, oh, wait, there's this email I didn't respond to at work. So you log in, and then, oh, I didn't finish this performance review. Let me finish that. And then you look up and it's 11 o'clock, and you're like, well, dang it. I said I was going to go to bed at 10 o'clock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
And
happens
that's
all the
it
time.
all the time. That's overwhelm. And part of it is, I really believe underneath overwhelm is fear. And when I say this, people are probably like, what is she talking about? But if you're sitting in that space right now that Lori mentioned at the beginning, like just get honest with yourself. And when I say fear, think about, does this resonate? Are you afraid to say no at work because people will judge you? You're worried that your boss will hand off stuff to someone else, that you'll get passed over. Is there some fear around work and that's why you're logging in at night? Are you saying yes to certain things because you don't want people to think badly of you or to judge you? That these are all fears, right? Are you
Right.
worried that you're going to disappoint someone? Particularly, that one feels strong emotionally for families. But as I said it out loud, I was thinking there's serious fears in a work situation about a higher up being disappointed in you. And so it's overproving, it's overperforming, and that is exhausting. And all of those things added together, fear of dropping the ball anywhere. For the moms who are watching this, we are terrified of screwing up our kids. We are terrified of it, or of them not having all the opportunities that Joey down the street has. So all of this, just think about all of that churning in your mind. That is overwhelm. So when I noticed it for myself, never in a million years would I have told you I was a perfectionist, because for me, that sort of conjures up like a perfect house, always clean, everything's neat, got straight A's, everything's organized.
Right.
That was not me. And I sort of define it differently now in that inner critic, perfectionist dictator piece, that nothing I ever did was good enough. So maybe I wasn't a perfectionist, but my inner critic sure was. And she
Wow.
would just beat on me if things weren't a certain way. And it all comes back to this fear of not being good enough, of not fitting in, of being rejected. So
Make,
does that make sense as I'm describing all of this
totally.
overwhelm?
Absolutely. Yeah, that really made sense. And, it's so interesting that our personality might be one way, but our inner critic might be completely different. And like
Mhm.
you said, it comes back to fear.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and there's so many fears. Fear of success, fear of failure. I mean, I learned, well, it was a few years ago now. I always thought I had a fear of failure, and I found out just kind of from doing some work myself that I had a fear of success, which was
Yeah.
crazy to me.
Yeah.
Like, how can you have a fear of success? But
Yeah.
there it was.
But there are all these things that come with fear of success. And we can go down this road, but if we might want to come back to overwhelm, but just in general, fear of success makes you more visible. It makes you more open to criticism. It makes you more, people might have a different view of you if you're now successful. So there's a lot of things that are under that fear. But I'm thinking about, so you bring all these fears together, it almost makes overwhelm sound insurmountable. And it's just not. It's really not. It's really about, and honestly, I think this is the key to everything. It's really about what we're telling ourselves and what we're thinking. And so if we can start to become aware, because you were saying it's sort of, you're not even aware of what's going
Mhm.
on.
Right.
What I really encourage people to do is really to start becoming aware of what we're telling ourselves. So what you just said about our personalities can be one way and our inner critic can be another, but that inner critic for most people runs on a loop in the background and we don't even know how harsh it is or how often it's coming up. So starting to become aware of it, that's the first step in anything, is awareness.
Oh, and you're right. That is so important. That's something that I've learned. Just becoming aware of it
Yeah.
so, sort of sets that intention of not necessarily fixing it, but
Yeah.
because it's more than just intention, but that just the awareness helps you realize during your day when that inner critic is on that loop,
Yeah.
and you can take the tools to slow that critic down, shut it
Right.
up eventually.
And the truth is, here's a couple of interesting things about the inner critic. One is everybody has one. Nobody got a pass on this. I don't care what you think about the person down the street. Everybody has one. Here's the difference, though, between like where I was and somebody who seems to, that's not true. We don't know what's going on in somebody's head. Let me rephrase this. It's the difference between me now and me then, was how much you buy into what it's saying. So if you let that inner critic tank you, just really take you down, that's what I mean by buying into it. So how much credibility you give to it, how much you listen to it, that's the difference. We all have one. What matters is how much credibility you're giving it. And I will say, over the years, having become more aware of it, what it says to me is very different now. It's not as harsh as it used to be.
Nice.
Becoming aware of it, intentionally shifting what I'm telling myself has made a huge, huge difference in my life. And this is what I work on clients with too, is really becoming aware of that, because it's the undercurrent to everything. What you're thinking, what you're telling yourself.
And what's nice about that too is then that kind of puts you back in control
Totally.
over, yeah, over
Yeah.
that.
And how many times do you hear people say things? Maybe they don't say, I want to have control, but you can just tell, like my friend who's saying it's too much, it's too much. She wanted control over her time and her life again. And so there is that element of being able to get back some calm and peace in your life and control. And can I just say, how much energy are we wasting on that I tend to think of it as a spin of thoughts. My inner critic feels a little bit like the Tasmanian devil.
Mm.
It's not everybody experiences that same way, but just think about how much energy is taken up by those thoughts beating you up.
Oh yeah, I no, absolutely. And I mean, I do daily affirmations just to keep those negative
Yeah.
thoughts out,
It's
and
like the antidote to it, right?
uh-huh, it is. And I mean, and I've been doing this like for 5 years,
Yeah.
daily
Yeah.
daily affirmations just to keep that critic, just to like keep it small.
Yeah.
Um, because
See,
I
it's
don't think
possible.
yes. Yes, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. And I don't know about you, but I feel like it's never going to go away, but at least I can quiet it down to a low hum.
Yeah, and then you're not living every day in it. If
Mm,
you can quiet it to a low hum, then when it's just humming in the background but not beating you over the head with a mallet, it's a very different life.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Completely agree because I feel like for years I lived with it like you said just beating me over the head with a mallet and all the things even the things that would stop me from moving forward.
Mhm.
But if I should happen to do something and move forward, then all the things, all the different ways I did it wrong, I should have done it better,
Yes.
I could have done it better.
Yes. By the way, that word should, I think it should be on the list of dirty words. It should be a four-letter word. This is something I was going to say preach. I guess that is the right word. Stop shoulding
Yeah.
on yourself.
Yeah.
It's really obligatory and it takes away all your power. So you just mentioned you want to have control back. If you want to have control, it doesn't come from shitting on yourself. It comes from listening to what you want and making your needs a priority. And to be clear, no one here is talking about, blow off your family and move to Bali so you can have a life of ease and peace. You can have, I know this sounds impossible, but you can have more calm, more peace, more ease in your life that you're living right now. It is possible. And you're not going to become a selfish jerk who just disregards everybody. It's literally all I ask when I'm working with clients, all I'm asking is for her needs to be I'm doing this like it's an equation, but in the equation of her life. So at least as much of a consideration as everyone else in her life. Just be
Mm,
a factor in the equation of your life rather than everybody takes precedence over me and everything else.
I like that analogy. I mean,
Thank you.
yeah, it just puts it out there. Like, why aren't we part of the equation? Why
Yeah, you
aren't
don't
we?
have to abandon your family.
Yeah,
You're not going to disappoint anybody. You're not going to leave them behind. Just get yourself on the same level for consideration as them.
yeah. And that's where that believing that we deserve it, believing that we're worthy of being on that same level.
Yes, but I will say, you don't have to have that sense of worth yet. You can get there.
Good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
very good point. And I'm not speaking, but about overwhelm.
Yes.
Yeah, I so so I recently learned, so I tend to keep myself busy and and not intentionally, like I don't even
Mhm.
realize I'm doing it. But I, recently learned within the last year, I guess, or so, that that has a little bit to do with like intimacy with myself, like, you know, being able to just be with myself.
Yeah.
And I've never thought I had a problem with that, but can you speak a little about that, like overwhelm is, or maybe like more to the point, just being busy, keeping yourself
Yes.
busy.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So being busy, Brene Brown, I'm sure, I don't know if your listeners know who she is, but Brene Brown is a researcher out of the University of Houston. She researches shame and vulnerability. Her work is amazing. And why was I bringing her up? Gosh darn
Busyness.
it.
Uh,
Busyness, thank you.
uh,
She says our culture now wears busy like a badge of honor. And when you think about that, when you ask somebody how they are, 9 times out of 10 they're like, "Oh, we're really busy."
yep.
But she is sort of on a mission. I don't know that she says it quite like this, but to really help us see that busy doesn't make us more valuable or more important. But I think sometimes we're doing that, like we're just piling on. And I think it comes back to all those fears again, fears of, your kids not having what they need. You're worried that somebody's going to judge you, or you're worried that if you don't take on all these things at work. So there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
And this expression that you're using of intimacy with yourself is sometimes we don't like ourselves very much. So if we get quiet, we're kind of faced with that, if you will. And
Okay.
I wonder when that expression came out for you, I wonder if that's the connection there. And the way I like to think about it is we have to find some compassion for ourselves. And I think that's a similar process of really getting to know ourselves and finding compassion. When I realized that I was feeling so lousy because I was beating myself up, that was it was a game changer, but I didn't instantly have compassion for myself. I'm a person who's really hard on myself. So my thoughts then might have been like, well, that's really stupid. Why am I doing that? But that's not going to help myself.
Right.
So if I think more about what if one of my daughters came to me with that? How would I respond? What if one of my best friends came to me? How would I respond? It's very different than how I was responding to myself. So, can I try to show myself some compassion? And that's when things really started to change. It did not happen overnight, but trying to be a little more gentle with myself has made a huge, huge difference. And I want to show, I don't think you can see, but um, Shauna Shapiro is also a researcher who I love, and she's very much about self compassion. And she has this exercise where you put your hands over your heart. I'm
Okay.
just
I'll do
lifting
that.
up so you can see, and putting your hands on your body actually releases oxytocin. That's the feel good hormone in your body. So if you're feeling harsh about yourself, if you can just stop, take a breath, and put your hands over your heart and just release some oxytocin. Simple to do. Maybe
Oh,
just try it out and see. This was a
oh,
game changer for me. Like, just when I'm feeling rough on myself, when I'm not feeling so great, I just put my hands over my heart. That's a huge act of self compassion.
and,
So,
and oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, just, making that space to treat yourself even just a little bit more like you would a friend can
Mhm.
make a big, big difference. And then that can grow from there.
I agree with that, and I love how you put it. And just when you mentioned putting your hand over your heart, I did that, and you just feel this kind of like this peace and this
Yeah.
just love, this self-love come over you.
Yeah.
And I have to mention that when I do my affirmations, I do them all sorts of different ways, but there is one where a point where I will put my hand over my heart,
Yeah.
and it really does just kind of, I don't know, connect me, I guess, to my
Yeah.
heart.
And some people watching this may think we're crazy, that it's not, that she will never be able to overcome the way she treats herself. Oh, and if I have another, can I take another second?
Oh yeah.
I just want to say there are people who firmly believe if they are not hard on themselves, then they won't reach their goals, that somehow they'll get soft and they won't get anywhere.
Oh,
But I want to say this if, to whoever is listening who thinks that you cannot beat yourself up into a size 3 dress. You cannot beat yourself up into a fantastic relationship. You cannot beat yourself up into wealth or whatever your dream is, because if you could, we'd all have it already. So, taking care of yourself is a way to achieve your goals and enjoy your life. And my thought is, how hard is it to put your hands over your heart? Maybe just give it a try and see, if you're relentless with yourself and you're feeling frustrated and overwhelmed, maybe this change is for you.
ah, that's beautiful. And especially if things haven't worked a certain way, no, no trouble just trying something else and just seeing if it works, if it resonates.
Yeah. And, someone who has that attitude of I can't let up on myself may be very successful in their career, let's say. So I just want to ask though, how are you sleeping? How much time are you spending with family and friends in a way you want to? What is keeping you awake at night? And if you're like, no, I sleep great, I have everything, then you've got it, sister, and high five to you. But is that fear of in your career, like somebody coming and bumping you for that your position, or whatever fears are going on, and what are you doing to counter those? Maybe there's a better way.
Yeah, I like that. And I was going to ask you what, like, one actionable step, our viewers could take to help with their feeling overwhelmed or maybe feeling a certain fear. So I love the hand over the heart. Is there anything else that you would like say would be a good actionable step for our
Yeah.
viewers?
So actually I have two, and I really want to say the hand over the heart, because not only is it hand over the heart, but you're kind of you can't put your hand over your heart and not stop, because it's just not a legit, if you're going to do it, put your hand over your heart and take a breath. And that just brings you in the moment. So that's like an instant. And you can, and here's the other thing. It doesn't have to be hand over your heart. It's hands on the body. So let's say you're in a meeting or something and you don't want to put your hands over your heart because it's going to look a little odd if you're with a client, but you could cross your arms and maybe just touch your arms and squeeze a little bit. It's almost
Oh,
like a little self hug.
yeah.
So that's sort of instant tool, right? No matter where you are, maybe just a little squeeze on your arms. That's a little self kindness, self love.
I love
A
that.
little longer term, if you really want to make some changes, I have a free offering that I'm so happy to share, because I know how much overwhelm is a problem. And so I created this really three very, very simple steps. And when I did this, I was thinking about the woman who's overwhelmed. She doesn't have time for a complicated program. What she needs are three micro steps, bite sized, easily implementable, that make a big difference. So I created this very simple program called From Overwhelmed to Ease, three simple steps to go from overwhelmed to ease. You guys, you can consume the whole thing in like 20 minutes, but I don't let you. I drop each step and then I give you some time in between, so we're not overwhelming. And I have been getting great feedback on this. It's helping people out. Literally 20 minutes for the entire thing and you're done.
Oh, I love that. And
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with our viewers, because and you're right, when you're overwhelmed and you're busy, 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 it's hard to make that time for
Yeah, it's
yourself.
right.
Even
Yeah.
like 20 minutes. So dropping it down and giving space to
Bite size,
I
really
love that.
simple. And these steps, I know women watching this don't think it's possible to have ease in their life. And I just thought about what do I feel like is the opposite of overwhelm? And that is just things feeling easy. And I know you think it's not possible, not you, Lori. I do think you think it's possible, but women who are watching, I know you think it's not possible to have ease in your current life. But Lori and I are both here as examples to show you it is possible. And I teach my clients to do this every single day. 3 micro steps. If you're interested, grab it. What do you have to lose?
Oh, thank you so much for
Yeah, you're
sharing.
welcome.
And I will put the link in the email that goes out with this interview. So,
Yeah, it's very simple. My name, JenniferSherwood.com/ease. Simple,
perfect.
simple. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I know that we are running out of time.
Yes,
So I
this has been
want
so fun.
I had fun too, and I feel like we could talk forever. Um, but before we go, is there anything else you'd like to share, or anything I may have forgotten?
Um, I think just allowing yourself to believe that you deserve as much consideration as everybody else would be a giant step. And I don't mean a giant step in like an insurmountable way, but like impactful giant step. Just give yourself some consideration. And if you can do that, I'd be interested to see what changes come about.
Ah, thank you. That's beautiful. I love that.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of this. It's so important and so beneficial to anyone who's out there feeling overwhelmed. So
Yeah. Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Lori. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you to the viewers for taking time out for yourself today and joining us. And I look forward to seeing you here tomorrow. Bye.